Good evening, YouTubers. Welcome to episode 64 of Shrigleytube TV. I hope you've all had a good week. I've had not a bad productive one. Been exciting with some finding of some new engines that I've put a little video on at the end all about. You'll see that at the end of tonight's show if you can stay up for it. It's like 50 minutes or something. But anyway, thanks for all the comments as usual. Really enjoyed reading them all. And it's nice to see a comment there from a chap called John who commented on the Husky dashboard. He said, I actually designed that back in the day. I thought, wow, that's amazing. So fair play to you, John, did a good job. Right, hope you enjoyed tonight's video anyway. I won't go on too much and I'll look forward to seeing you all next week. Got a couple of videos to do midweek. If not, I'll see you on Sunday at 7. Bye for now. Okay, YouTubers, it's Monday morning. Back at it. We've got the blaster going. My mate Glenn's with me. Morning, Glenn. And he's got some wheels. He's brought these wheels along for blasting. He said they're a bit scruffy, but they're basically brand new. So he's asked me to blast them, and then I've realised they're 5.5J, which is the perfect size for my Hillman, because the championship that I want to race with next year, the CTCRC, say you can only be 1 inch wider than standard, which is 4.5. So those 5.5J rims will be perfect. So Glenn, after a bit of arm twisting, basically agreed to sell me. Now, I'm really sorry, Glenn. We're sharing a microphone because although I've bought 2 new ones, I've instantly lost one of them. So I was going to ask you some questions again. I was going to say, how's your season going? And I believe you got a trophy at weekend in your little red davrian.
Yeah, I did all right at Airwood. I managed to finish 3rd in a field of 11, so that wasn't too bad. So good. I managed a PB, but it was in practice, so it didn't count. But always the way. But yeah.
Well, I think you'd go quicker if I was there to put the pressure on again, you know. But, yeah.
Chickened out though, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. Well, just too committed with other things, I'm afraid. Well, thanks for sorting me these wheels out. That is mega. You've actually made my day my week really, because they're quite. No one really ordered 5.5, so finding an old set is quite hard.
I've even got you a spare one for when you curb it.
Oh, you nasty man. Right, what we're going to do is Glenn's going to send me some video footage of his hill this weekend, so I'm going to put that on next. Okay, good morning, YouTubers. We're going to have a chat today about cylinder honing and its importance. So we'll start by giving you a bit of history. This is the engine that was on this machine, the boring machine. I was machining it for liners the other week, and I pointed out that it had a crack in the liner. So it belongs to my mate Richard. He's building his own engine. He just wanted a block doing. I'm going to try and get a bit of an interview with him later and let him tell us what his plans are for his new 1040 dry liner block. Now, the importance of cylinder honing, it's really important. But before I get stuck into it, over here we're going to call me Andy the multitasker. We've got the lathe, and we're just facing a flywheel. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it off just in case it's going to interfere with our audio. So you can see that's the original clutch face where the friction material ran against the flywheel. So all I do is I put it in, clock it all up, and then I just face it at 10-15 thou, get under the skin, because it's iron, it's sort of work hardens. You've got to put a good cut on, nice carbide radius tool, get underneath it, and then it'd be just perfect then for when he comes to put his new clutch on it. It'll be nice and judder free, etc. Anyway, going back to the Dryliner 1040 block, the importance of the honing is mega. You know, lots of people overlook this this subject, and you know, you don't always get the results you want, or should I say, the life out of the engine that you want. Because if this is done right, the engine, you know, the way the hone works, well, I'll start by talking about the tools. So this is the honing tool, and you can see it has 2 aluminium blades and 2 stones, and these expand like this. So when you turn this screw at the top here, you can probably just about make out they're starting to expand. So you put a preload on the cylinder, we push this into here, and then we go backwards and forwards at the same time as going round and round, and that puts a crisscross into the surface of the liner. Now I've just literally clamped this to the bed so that I can hold the engine solid, so that it doesn't move around when I'm stood here going in and out with it. Now the importance of this crisscross is mega, really, because it helps retain the oil to lubricate the rings. You don't want too much oil to be around, because then the engine will smoke, but we want enough oil to sit. If you can imagine, these grooves we're putting in, they're all low. We're talking microscopic here, but it retains the oil and basically helps to seal the cylinder. Because, you know, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to set a burn off, and we want all of that energy from that burn to push the piston down. It's no good if half the burn's going down the side of the piston, because you're losing half your energy. We want all the energy to be used to push the piston down, to push the crankshaft around, to push you past the checkered flag first. Anyway, so that's the honing tool. Now, this is all Eve Robinson. I just do it because it works this way and it suits me. But, you know, we saw at Bob's place last week, the proper honer is a big honer with a stop on it, and it's automatic and it goes up and down. And it's got coolant flow, or, you know, flow for the oil to go around to lubricate. I'm stood here squirting a kind of WD-40 at it with this old Makita drill. It's actually affectionately known as the wrist snapper. And it's called that because it's not a high-speed drill, it's a high-torque drill. So it's very low geared. It's got loads of torque. And when you're honing, if you look at the bottom of the hole, you'll see the mains bearing. If you catch the main bearing with the end of the honing tool, what happens is it all jams up. And you can see it used to have like a screw in here with a piece. It just snaps it straight out, because it just rips it out of your hands. I've actually broken one of these across here as well. And I injured my thumb when I did it, and my thumb hurt for 2 years before it started to get better. Only when it was cold, really. But anyway, that's another story. So that's the honing tool we're going to use to hone this cylinder. That's a micrometer, and I've used this micrometer to measure the size of the piston. We measure the piston just up from the bottom. That's its biggest point there on the skirt. That obviously the top gets hotter, so the top of the piston, which I can probably demonstrate, is like 20 thou down. So you look at that and you think, oh my god, he's bought it too big. But if we get the piston and put it where it should be, in here like this, you've got to offer it dead straight, and it should just go in. Because what I've tried to do is, I mean, it's rough, so it doesn't want to go in, but I've tried to make it size on size, because I want a 2.5 thou depth of, or 3 thou ideally, depth of hone. And if I bore the hole with any bigger, so the piston will go in, we haven't got enough material to get a good quality hone. So I've made the piston basically the same size as this. Now, I used to do the piston clearance up at like 4 thou. And there was lots of reasons for that. It was just sort of a standard thing. Oh, big pot piston like this, big clearance, that was the rule. Yeah, run 4 or 5 thou. It'll clatter like mad when it's cold. But when it's racing, it's not tight in the bore. But I have to be honest, from the results I've seen, I've started to close my tolerance down. I'm bringing them down to more like 3 thou now, because why am I doing it? Well, I think because the oil is better now. We've got better oil. We can run closer without the chance of it picking up. Obviously, the reason we run a clearance is because the liner is iron and the piston is aluminium. So the piston obviously has a higher rate of expansion. So when the engine is at running temperature, we've just seen the top of the piston is considerably bigger than the bottom. And the reason for that is the piston, the crown, sees all the temperature. So when you get a lot of temperature being pushed into the top of the piston, it expands, so it has to have more clearance. And then the bottom of the piston stays cooler, obviously, so that's bigger, and that's like your support. But all of these, the closer you can get the piston to the cylinder without it picking up friction, obviously, the more heat you can lose out of the piston into the cooling jacket and into the water and away. And piston temperature stability is mega. If you can get that right, obviously it's more ideal when you've got oil cooling jets, etc. But for what we're doing, 3 thou, just right for me. Quite like 3 thou. Anyway, got carried away there, didn't I? So we've gone over the wrist snapper. We've gone over this. This is to measure this. We've measured that. Then I literally put that round there. You see this little plunger? As I turn that, it measures the size. So this is the bore mic, basically. So look at this. You can see I've set, well, no, I haven't set, well, I have set it, but you can't see that. So we put this in here, and you'll notice the numbers go round until they stop. Now I've set that to the size of the piston. So I reckon that bore is already at plus 7 or 8 tenths. I reckon, yeah, about plus 8 tenths, 9 tenths on the piston size. So it only gives me 2 and a bit thou to take out of it to get it up to the 3 thou. So that's quite big already, but that'd be fine. It's actually bigger at the bottom, believe it or not. So what the idea of this is, we move it up and down. We can measure the size of the bore all over, because what we want is we want a perfectly straight bore, or if anything, we want it to go bigger at the bottom, because that's where the rings don't go. So we want it nice and parallel where the rings go, so they can get a really good seal and bed in. Right, so you see how that works. What I'll do is I'll put the camera on the stand, and I'll start honing the cylinder, and then we'll go from there. Right, okay, I thought I'd do an explanation as to what went on in the time lapse there. We started off by honing from this side, but because of the shape of the honing tool, if you can imagine, I'm only getting it to sort of this depth here because of the mains at the bottom. So the mains are catching. So what happens is we end up with a liner that ends up sort of funnel shaped. So it was like half a thou smaller at the bottom than it was at the top. Probably some wear in the honing tool as well, to be fair. But, as long as we're aware of it and we can measure it, we can do things to counteract it. So hence I spun the block round, went in from behind, and opened up that last half thou. I took it a thou bigger, so that now we've got a situation where we've basically got 2.5 or two thou and say 3 tenths at the top, and it's about 2 thou and 5 or 6 tenths at the bottom. So what we're going to do together is we're just going to open this up. I'll try and show you the speeds and the feeds that I use to get the crisscross, and we'll have a zoom in and look at the finish at the end. So if I measure it at the very top here, you can see it's actually, as it's cooling down, it's shrinking about 2 thou and 1 tenth. If we go to the bottom, see we're 2.5 thou there. So we've got the size the right way around, because by the time we've got this out to just under 3 thou, that the bottom will be just under 3 thou as well, because obviously we're going in from the front again with the worn, we'll call it the worn honing device. But yeah, as long as we know about it, we can measure it and make it correct. Now, I was just going to say about this honing. Obviously, being cast iron, when you rub it lots of times, so when the piston rings go past it, what happens is it effectively work hardens, and you'll hear people talk about a cylinder being glazed. Well, they build up a glaze, but what we want them to do is we want them to work harden and glaze after the rings have settled into the bore shape. Because although we're making this round and the rings are obviously round, you know, there's tiny little bits of compromises everywhere where it's not quite round, hence why we run an engine in. So the most critical part of all this is when it runs on the dyno, we run it with a very basic running in oil. So the running in oil will protect it, but it'll lubricate it, but it won't what's the word for it? Won't allow it to glaze up. So in other words, the bore won't work hard and go with a glaze on it before the rings have had a chance to settle in. That's why I try and leave the dyno oil in and say just to the customers, just run it, do your test session or do a few 100 miles on the road with your running in oil, let it all make friends, let it all settle down, let the piston cylinder seal be as good as possible. And then when you put it on your racing or your Millers or whatever you choose to put in it, that's modern and synthetic, because we do run these engines on fully synthetic 1040 without any issues whatsoever. You'll then have the protection, so it'll last for a long time and stay good and not burn oil and not wear out and just be a good engine. So when it, in theory, say the engine came back for a refresh at the end of the season and I came to put new pistons in it just because they were up on their time rather than up actually worn, just the stresses are built up in them. What I'd like to see is I'd like to see a nice glaze on the bore, but under the glaze I'd want to see the crisscross of the honing all nice and undisturbed, no screw-ups in it, so it's had good air filtration, etc. Anyway, getting carried away again. What we'll do is we'll put this in so you can see it and hear it and see how it works. So I'm just expanding the stones and the blades now to put some preload on, and then with plenty of lubrication, and then get the wrist snapper up against my chest there. I don't know if you can see that. And I try and hold it and keep my finger very lightly on the trigger, because if I catch the mains, I know when this bit gets level with the top of the liner, the stones are right close to the main bearing casting. If they catch, the whole thing jams up. So I can feel that hasn't got enough preload on yet, so put some more preload on. Now you can hear the drill grafting. That's because it's obviously trying to turn against all the friction that I've created by putting a preload on the cylinder wall. Just a bit more lubrication on there. We'll see how much this has took out. Right, now something I want to mention. When you come to take out the honing tool, it's really important that you put the aluminium blades north and south and the stones east and west. So when you back off the preload and you retract the honing tool from the cylinder, the stones don't drag on the cylinder wall because they're so abrasive. What can happen is if you have the stones north and south and just pull it out, you end up with two big graze marks in the cylinder, which obviously is not good on a fresh engine. So just got to be mindful when you're removing the tool. Right, let's have a little look and see how the cylinder's looking. Now, it will cool down from this. I know it's only like lukewarm, but it will shrink a few tenths. So we're now about 2.5 out at the top and just over 2.5 at the bottom. So we need to go through them all, get them all to the same stage, let it cool down, have a cup of tea, then we'll come back and take the last few temps out, and then the engine will be good for Richard to take and build and put in his hill. Okay, we've finished honing the block now, so I'm going to faceplate him, give him a bit of a wipe down. Obviously Richard will have to give him a full bath when he gets him home and gets it all clean and free from any grime, and all the bungs are removed from the oil ways. I've had to drill these out because they were just stuck in, but they're just at 1/8 NPT bungs, so we can replace all them. Now, what I was going to show you was I put the camera in a different mode, so hopefully you can get an idea of the crisscross that I'm on about. So you see these little lines that I'm not focusing on very well. What they do is they retain the oil. So when the piston's going up and down really, really fast, there's obviously a lot of oil on the other side of the piston, and we accept that a percentage will get past and get burnt. That's why engines use oil. But we're trying to keep that cylinder pressure in there as well as we can. So the lubrication obviously helps to seal the ring against the bore. The ring's got like a preload. Obviously, it's shrunk into the not shrunk, but you have to squeeze them so they go in. So the ring's hard up against the cylinder liner, and obviously what we're trying to achieve is keeping all the cylinder pressure in the chamber and not going past the piston. Because the other thing to take into account is if you get a bad cylinder sealing situation where the engine breathes heavily, what happens is the blow-by that goes past the piston rings actually blows the oil off the side of the piston. So you end up with, you're relying on that oil as a cushion to take the heat from the piston into the liner, into the parent liner, into the cooling jacket. If you've got loads of gases getting past the piston rings, you often see on old worn engines, you pull a piston out and the side of the piston's black because the combustion pressure has been leaking past. Anyway, getting carried away again here. So just very important that we get the home right, good quality modern piston rings, and giving yourself the best chance once it's running. Hopefully it'll stay good forever. Okay, that's the first side of the flywheel face. What we're going to do now is spin him round and take some meat out the back. Okay, got the flywheel in the other way around now. Because he's on cast iron, we can take a big cut but no speed. So lots of material being removed, but low speed. That's 40 revolutions per minute. And we'll go across to take some weight out, ready to go again. Good morning, YouTubers. I'm going to try and keep this brief. We're going to talk about oil coolers or oil heat exchange unit. There's a better way of describing it. So this is Noel's engine with his lovely wheel powering manifold there, about to go on Dyno, and he's requested that we fit a tidier setup than pipes everywhere to oil coolers. So I said, look, I fit these heat exchange units from modern cars. This one's from a Vauxhall Omega. It just happened to be on an engine that I bought, a 2.2 for an XE I was doing for someone. So I thought, I'll give it a clean up. It's stainless steel. It's lovely. It's like new. And I thought, that'll be perfect for a Hillman. Now I have done this before. This isn't a new thing. So what basically this does is the cold water from the engine that comes out of here, because the cold water inlet for the imp is here. So on the opposite side, we have good flow there. It comes into the cooler, and inside here, there's like lots of plates that have got water one side of them and the high pressure oil feed the other side. And the idea is that it's an exchange unit. So when the engine's cold and the oil is obviously cold, but the water heats up quicker because obviously the water's around the combustion chamber, etc. It acts as a stabilizer, as in it puts the heat into the oil and warms the oil up. But when the engine gets hot and the oil obviously has got lots of temperature in it and the water's stabilized by the fact it's got the thermostat at 74 degrees, what happens then is the water actually cools the oil to stabilize it. So we don't see much. Generally what we see is that we say if we run 65, 70, we generally run about 20 degrees hotter. So we see about 85, 90 on the oil temperature, possibly 100 if you've been doing like fast, motorway spin with high RPM, because it's a high RPM that puts the temperature into the oil. It's the surface speed between the bearing and the journal that creates the temperature, the friction. Anyway, right. So what I was going to say was that's the cooler we're going to fit. This is a fire pump type filter housing. So you can see it isn't drilled. It hasn't got a bung inside. So all the oil comes to the outside here and it goes through the outside of the filter and then back up the middle. But obviously when we put the cooler on, it gathers, it all goes through there, and then it comes out here into the oil filter and then back up the middle through the hole into the engine. So the oil feed goes back up the center. Now, this fire pump one, identifiable by having G-Saver stamps on it, is different to an imp one. An imp one has an aluminium thread, and these have been known to break off, especially when you put a cooler on. I've had one break myself. Hence, what we used to do was machine this off and drill and tap it 3/4 UNF and put like a thread in it that was off a Vauxhall engine, so that we could screw the oil filter on, the housing on, knowing that it had, you know, a steel insert that was a full depth of say 25mm into the casting. But now I've got these, it's much simpler for me to fit these coolers, because the housing comes with this steel insert in it, and it's also got some extra bracing. If you look, it's just a better design. It's because it was MOD basically. So I've got loads of these. If you ever need one, just give me a bell and we'll get one in the post to you. That goes on there, water comes out of here into here, stabilizes the oil temperature, back out of here, back around, and then I've put another tail at the back of the engine so it can rejoin at the thermostat end, ready to be circulated and cooled by the radiator. So I don't want to get over involved. This is the this is actually off something else, because the one that comes with it doesn't work, but I think it's M18 rather than 3/4 UNF. But that screws on there. There's a washer that I've missed off, but that goes on there, and then quite simply the oil filter screws on there, so it's dead tidy. There's no mess. It's just real simple. So we're going to get that all piped up now, and then we'll get it on the dyno and we'll get a tune out of it. Okay, YouTubers, we're on with Noel, the most patient customer in the world's engine. This is his little 1040, and I've been letting it make friends for a bit, and now it's time to give it a good session, see if it's got any horsepower. Well, I actually know, that's why I'm quite chirpy, because for some reason every now and again you get one that does a little bit more for no reason, and I think this is one of them, because it's not even a good air day. It's like a 985 millibar day, and I'm seeing like 78 foot-pound of torque, which is like a good 3 or 4 foot-pound up on what I expected to see with the R20 cam, and it hangs on really well as well. I've had to do a fair bit of messing, because it's the first time I've run the electronic ignition system from the fire pump engines on an engine, and the advance curve was just completely wrong, so I had to sort that out. And it's on a bigger main jet than I'd expect it to be, to make it happy, but that's a good thing, because it means it's burning the fuel. So yeah, exciting. Anyway, have a look at this and see what you think. We'll load him up. Got that oil cooler system working, absolute treat, really happy with that. We'll have a little chat about that in a minute as well. Let the dyno let go. It's possibly quite good, this, because it's got one of Will's manifolds on. It definitely helped. It's very, very crisp. So I'm trying to make this like a road car engine, because obviously, although Noel's not going racing with it, he is a young man, and I know he will want to give it a good driving down the lanes when he gets his opportunity when his car's finished. So I want to try and make it work from sort of 3,000 RPM. So go wide open there, 4,000, 68, 69 foot-pound. It's really quite friendly. Just go a bit further up. The rev counter's playing up, I'm afraid. It says about 78 foot-pound. 6.5, 7, still holding 73, 8.5, 8,000, still holding 65 at 8. Let's go and get my calculator. Let's do a quick calculation. 65 multiplied by, that's 65 foot-pound, 8,000. Divided by 5252. No, it's not got 99 horsepower, not a chance. We'll say it's a good 90 horsepower, this. I reckon it's a good 90, 92. Even though it's not a good air day, I think my carbs have gone out of balance. Yeah, it's really crisp, that. Let's just just load it up at the bottom end again, make sure it's still doing the torque it was doing before. Get that. I reckon that's about 80 foot-pound. Dead straight as well, dead flat. Brilliant. Well, I'm chuffed to bits with that. That's a good result. I hope Noel will be happy with that engine. We'll go inside now and we'll talk about the ignition and stuff. Okay, YouTubers, just finished dyno in this little engine. I was really impressed with that. 78 foot-pounds, and it's a proper rubbish air day. So that's a good strong engine. That's my correction factor, by the way. It's either a rubbish air day or a great air day, one of the two. So yeah, really pleased with that. It's got no oil leaks, which is good. Good start to the job. So what I was going to say was carbs that he supplied. Quite happy with them in the end. I think they're working quite well. This is the oil heat exchange unit I was telling you about, and obviously you can see I'm really impressed with the way this works, in that it's quite easy to see it, because you can see this will be the top hose that goes to the radiator. This is our bypass hose, which it didn't really need, but I put it on anyway just because we are running the thermostat. So when the pump down here, like the imp pump, pumps the water into the engine, imagine that's a radiator, but on this occasion it's actually a heat exchange unit, but imagine that's a radiator on your imp. So the water's waiting to go in, so obviously it's got quite a bit of pressure behind it because it's been driven by the crankshaft on the fan belt. Obviously thermostat's shut, so we have to put a bypass in for the water to go somewhere, otherwise we can build up too much water pressure. And we've seen it where it starts pushing past the paper gasket, because look, this is a wheel shrink head. It's not like a head gasket, it's just a little bit of paper. So done that, but what I didn't take into account, well I did take into account, but when it was cold and I was warming it up, before the thermostat opened, the water obviously couldn't go that way, so it either had to go through the bypass or it went down here into the cooler, and then it rejoins on this side of the thermostat. So in other words, that was acting as a bypass, which is great, because what it meant was the warm water from the engine before the thermostat opened was warming the oil up. So nice little trade-off there. So that was good. That was impressive, that. So yeah, I think we'll call that in the outro now. I've done a bit of work on the Dizzy. You might notice he's lost his advance and retard unit. So I took the base plate out and welded it basically, so that now the base plate can't move backwards and forwards on the spring like they used to do before. So that's all rigid in there. And then what happened was, because this Dizzy is the first time I've run these brand new Dizzies on effectively a race engine, where it needs a different advance curve. We want all the advance to come on later when the engine's gone through peak torque. So the advance curve was far too early on it. It was like it was fine the other day when I did the Husky engine, because it had a standard cam in it, so it was all over by 4,500-5,000. But this thing was advancing down at like 1,500 RPM in 2000. So I've sorted the weights out, put some stronger springs in, and it had a 15-degree swing. So 15 degrees at the Dizzy, which is half speed, is obviously 30 degrees on the crank pulley. Well, I've narrowed it right down to 11 degrees. So we've got basically 11 degrees in here, which has given us we've got about 6 degrees in here, which has given us 12 degrees at the crankshaft. So the rotor arm, when it advances, in fact I can show you, you'll see now, that is it. There's no sloppiness. So it doesn't start advancing till about 4,000, and then it does a 6-degree swing. But remember, that runs at half speed to the crankshaft. So the crankshaft, it's actually 12 degrees. So we're starting at about 18 and we're ending up at 30. And that's just been perfect for this engine, because it's quite a high compression engine. I think I could have squeezed some more advance into it, to be honest, but it was so sweet and it held its torque so nicely. I thought, no, that's going to be belting that. So yeah, really pleased with that. We'll give Noel a ring and get him to come and collect it, and we'll try and get an interview out of him. Okay, YouTubers, you might recall the 1200cc engine we've been talking about for the last few weeks, and the crankshaft that we got balanced last week. Well, it's come to that point now where I've got all the parts in the box, and it's time to assemble it. It's like my favourite time, this. And I've done a dry build, so I know everything's correct. I've just got to basically put it together and just do the final combustion chamber, work out the compression ratio. We have actually got some more work to use the head. I've got to put some guides in the head and recut the seats. So we'll do that, get a valve height, then we'll work out the chamber size and sort the compression ratio out. So this is the crank that we had balanced last week. I've just put some center pop marks on it. I don't know if you can see them on all parts of the clutch. Just I always do it in line with 1 and 4, just so that when we take it all apart now, because what's going to happen is I'm going to clean all this, and if you use paint marks to register each part to each part, the paint sometimes comes off with the brake cleaner, and then you're left with a balanced assembly, not knowing where it goes, because obviously it can all move around in different positions. So always center dot the parts of the clutch as soon as it's been balanced, so you can always put them back the same way. And what I was going to say is, this crank's brand new, obviously, but these bungs that are from where it was initially cross-drilled when it was manufactured, we always take those out and give it a right good brake cleaner bath, because you can't believe what little bits hang around and hide. In fact, what I'll do is I'll take some bungs out and I'll show you what I'm talking about. We'll clean the aluminium here so you can see what comes out of it. But quite often when they get ground, the carborundum from the wheel and the lubricant, it runs back into the crankshaft and pulls, and oh, it's horrible. So yeah, we'll make sure that's all clean. Block's done, head's nearly there, got the alternator, got the all electronic bits to go on it. Hopefully we get a good week next week. We'll get a tune out of this. Right, we're not sure what's going to happen here. It could be a flop, this. I've got the brake cleaner, and I was just going to, I put a bit of white paper underneath, and I was going to show you what I meant by the muck that hangs around inside these cross drillings. So we're going to blast it through. This should come out of the middle main. Right, let's have a look, see if anything's come out. Yeah, quite a lot of some metal fragments there. To be fair, it's actually pretty clean. I think most of those particles have come from when we were drilling it on the balancing machine, you know, when the bits of swarf have gone down the hole. So nothing alarming, but we'll give it a full bath anyway. Okay, YouTubers, as you know, I've been using the Hillman for work this week, trying to put some miles on the clock, and I've been asked, so I mentioned in the video drive with Bergerac about the extra heater matrix I got in the front. So I was just going to show in a real quick video how easy it is to get your car warm, because as you'll know, the standard matrix for it lives in the dashboard there, and it's a bit mediocre to say the best, you know. It just doesn't really cut it for the car, the size of the car. So what I do is, instead of running the pipe to the matrix, I run it down to the front to an extra matrix, and then back up again and back into the original matrix. So the how does it work now? So the hot water comes in from this end, from the back of the head. It goes into the matrix in the car first, comes out of the matrix in the car, goes down to the matrix at the front, and then back to the water pump along the passenger side still. So all I've done is minimum modification. Excuse the mess inside the Husky. It's just it's a working vehicle. So this is a Mark IV Escort 1989 heater matrix, and all you've got to do is drill 2 holes in the top of your heater box. You haven't got to disturb anything else. You can't actually see it, but if you take the grill off the front, the matrix fits perfectly along the front. There's like a horn separator. You have to nibble that back a bit, but it just fits a treat. I just literally plonked it in there in about 10 minutes. And that was a couple of years ago. And now the car, I've got to say, with this new 89-degree thermostat, I was driving to work this morning thinking, it's actually quite pleasant, this. So yeah, that's, if you want to put a matrix in, that's how you do it. Okay, YouTubers, once in a lifetime, you sometimes get an opportunity to purchase a load of treasure, should we say. Now, I had a phone call from a chap and said, look, we think we've got some Hillman imp engines here in an old Ministry of Defence site that's been cleared. Would you like to come and take a look and decide if you want to buy them? So I said, yeah, you know, always interested in buying imp engines. I thought there'll be fire pump engines, to be honest. I thought these would be climax units. When I've got there and started having a good look round, I've realised that they're actually the Talbot Sunbeam 1 litre engines, or the 930cc ones. So this is me, like a kid in a sweet shop. Absolutely, like this is the sort of dreams I've had about scrapyards for years. Anyway, they've been preserved so well. These crates, because it was Ministry of Defence, it was all sealed so well. So this is where the 930 engines are coming from that I've been converting, like the one I put in the Husky. And also I've been using some of the blocks to create new race engines for next year for the racers, because obviously the new parts have never had antifreeze in them, or all the threads are good on them. They're just brand new. So look at that. I couldn't believe my eyes. It nearly popped out. Anyway, there was 12 in a crate, so I've got a few of these engines. So if anybody, well, what I'm going to do this week, I'm going to do a price list, and I'm going to collate all the videos that I've done converting the 930cc engine from a fire pump to an imp engine. I'm going to put them all on one video and upload it probably Monday or Tuesday night with a price list. So if anybody's got an imp with a worn out engine, they don't want a race engine, and they want a cost effective way of putting a brand new unit in their engine, they can go on the YouTube channel, look at the video, and decide what spec they want, because obviously we can offer them in different sort of specs. The one that's in the 930 Husky at the moment is just basically standard with a skim on the cylinder head to get the compression up, because obviously these are a bit low compression being for fire pumps. So look at those beauties. I just could not believe my luck. Anyway, look forward to seeing you all next Sunday at 7, if not before. Obviously, if you want to join me midweek for the we've got 2 videos this week. We've got the Banger World Final preparation with Jack and his Ford Scorpio, and also we'll do a full price list and all the videos collated together for the 930 conversion to an imp. But I'll do them as separate videos. Okay, have a great week. Bye for now.